Well, hello Internet. This is Adobe Photoshop Tutorials. My name is Brent, and today I'll be going over the Marquee tool in Photoshop Creative Cloud. Now, the Marquee tool is the second tool down on the left-hand toolbar, and you've probably used it before to create a selection like this, move it around to frame a shot. You probably came up to image and cropped it to make a smaller image out of the larger. And that's all fine and good, but there's actually quite a few other things you can do with the Marquee tool that are pretty interesting. So I'm going to go over a few of those now. The first is that you can actually modify the selection box area by holding Shift, creating new boxes, and it'll just add to your current box. You can do that as much as you want. Or if you want to subtract from this, you can hold the Option key, which is Alt on a PC, and it'll just start cutting things out. The exact opposite of the holding the Shift key does. Now, these options, you can also do these by going up here at the top to the Add to Selection, Subtract from Selection, and you can just grab that, and everything you do, you can add to the box or subtract from the box. And you don't have to hold the key or anything like that, but I like just leaving it on New Selection and holding the hotkeys because it just saves a little bit of time. Now there's one other option up here too, which is the intersect selection. So how that works is you create a box, you create another box, and it's going to give me the area that overlaps or intersects there. So it can be useful if you want to just get sections like that using overlaps. Me, I always use the new selection tool. I just find it's the most versatile. Now the next option you have is in the right-click menu or the double-click menu if you're on a Mac. You can deselect the selection area, but you can also do that just by hitting Command D, which is what I usually do, just use the hotkey. You can select the inverse, which grabs everything but the selected area. That actually comes in handy quite a bit. And you've got some other options too, such as feathering and refining the edge, which those options are available at the top here. So I'll go over those in a minute, but you can create new layers with copies, new layers with cutouts. You can transform this selection, which is just changing the marquee selection box just a little bit at a time like this. Whenever you're done, you hit enter and it'll accept it. And the last one is the free transform, which is actually kind of cool. So this allows you to just make a selection and modify the selection right on the image. In this case, I'm going to go over here, expand it, and then that kind of makes the building look like it's a little bit closer than it was before, right? Kind of cool. I'm going to go back though and go over some other options here. Up here at the top, you've got the style, and it's usually set to normal, but you can set it to fixed ratio, which gives you a width and height ratio. I'm going to set it to 1:1 so you can see. When you have it set to 1:1, it's going to give you a perfect square. The 1:1 means the width and the height, well, it'll be equal. So you get a perfect square in your selection. No matter how big you make it or small, it'll be perfect square. You can also do a width of 2 and a height of 1. You can create like a perfect rectangle of different sizes. And this can be really good if you want to crop your image to very specific sizes. So that's something you can play with as well. I don't use the fixed ratio 1:1 that often. I'll tell you why. Because if you hold the Shift key before you click with just normal selected, it'll give you a perfect 1:1 square. So you don't actually have to switch off of normal to get that. Now the last one on here is fixed size. This will give you another height and width, but instead of a ratio, it's going to be exact pixel sizes. So if I set it to 50 by 50, which it's set at now, it's going to give me a 50 by 50 square. And every time I click, it's just going to be the exact same size. So that can be useful if you have very specific size requirements that you want your selection box to fit over. I'm going to go back to normal though and go over some other options like the different kinds of marquee tools. We've been working with the rectangular marquee tool, but we have some other options here. So let's go over those. The first is the elliptical, which I'm going to set the feathering back to 0 real quick. There's only two differences with the elliptical, really. One being the obvious, that it makes a circle or a oval instead of a rectangle or square. But the second is this anti-aliasing, and this is actually important. So it comes, normally it comes checked by default, but I'm going to deselect it real quick, and I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you don't use anti-aliasing. I'm going to create, I'm going to drag this section out here, I'm going to deselect it, and I'm going to zoom in here at the bottom edge. You'll notice that it's this really harsh, jagged edge, very pixelated, doesn't look very good. Even when you zoom out a bit, you can still tell it's like really pixelated, just kind of looks crummy. Well, that's the reason anti-aliasing exists, right? So if you set, or you turn it back on and we do the exact same thing over again, you drag it out, deselect it and zoom in, you'll notice that it's created this gradient from the background and the foreground. And what that does is it just softens the edge. It kind of makes it less pixelated. In fact, if you zoom out enough, you really don't notice at all. It looks like a pretty smooth edge. So I highly recommend you leave anti-aliasing on. I'm going to hit Command-0 to go back to full screen. The next one is the single row marquee tool. And the one after that's the single column marquee tool. Difference is one creates a horizontal line and the other creates a vertical line. And all this does is select one line of pixels right across your entire image. Now, this tool isn't really that helpful, I've found. I haven't found too many instances where this comes in handy, but I did find this really cool, interesting effect that you can create using this. It won't work on every image, but it works pretty well on this one. So I'm going to set that line right about there, and I'm going to come up to the Move tool and make sure the Show Transform controls are set. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to drag down the bottom, and that's kind of cool. It creates this different effect where the buildings suddenly seem a lot taller. I got rid of a lot of the dark background at the bottom. It's just kind of a cool effect to change things up. I'm going to do one more thing here. I was playing with it, I noticed. If you drag it down there, it almost gives it this like reflected on water look, right? It kind of makes it look like a reflection of the city skyline or the silhouette against the water. It's kind of cool. I mean, you could probably do it much better with other effects, but not bad for only taking a couple seconds, I'd say. I'm going to cancel that out and deselect. I'm going to go back to my marquee tool. The last thing I'm going to show you is the refine edges. Then I'm going to move on to some other cool stuff. So if I wanted to, say, copy this, I'm going to hit Command-C, Command-V, then I'm going to hold the Command button and move this, and I wanted to create some more buildings just like this. You'll notice that up here in the sky, you can really tell that I was just a cut and paste job, right? The blending is terrible. There's just no blending at all. A little bit better over there. Actually not bad, but still, it's not too great. So one thing we can do to make that better is to use the Refine Edge tool, and I'm going to use that right now. So I've got the selection. I click on the button up here. You get a lot of different options, and they all affect the outer edge of the marquee selection. But the one I'm going to use is the radius, and I'm going to set it up to about 7.5 or so. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Hit OK, and it's going to give me this marquee selection that's kind of jagged. It's not too even, but I'm going to copy and paste that again, and I'm going to drag it over there, and you'll see that though it isn't perfect, like over here, it blends in really, really well. Even over here, it's not perfect, I know that, but it blends in a heck of a lot better than it did before. So this would be a lot easier to kind of patch up and fix. So that's something that can save you a little bit of time when you're trying to replicate images and things of that nature. So over here, the next thing I'm going to go over is a couple things you can do with the elliptical marquee tool to create a couple neat effects. The first on this, I created just this red circle here, nothing special about it, but if I hold the Shift key, put the cursor right there, and I drag it out, my aim is really bad, but I'm going to move that somewhere around the center, make sure I'm on the right layer. Then I'm just going to hit, actually I want to get that up a little bit, just going to hit delete. Yeah, so I created this perfect red ring here, and nothing special about it, but creating a red ring like this, you can do it in many different ways. You can use the eraser and create, just a round stamp and stamp out the middle, or you can use the drawing shape tool and kind of play with the different settings and get something just like this. But I found using the elliptical tool on something like that is just really fast and easy, and it's actually pretty good, considering it only took a few seconds. So now I'm going to go over feathering. Feathering is a really neat feature. I'm going to use it on this blue circle over here. I'm going to create this elliptical, make sure I'm on the right layer. I'm going to hit delete again. Yeah, and what that did was create a gradient against the selection area that I had. Now, this is just a kind of a quick and dirty hack to make something look a little bit three-dimensional, right? I mean, I could have used the 3D tools, or I could have used the brush and come in here and done some stuff, but considering it was pretty quick and dirty, it was pretty simple to do, to create a kind of a sphere or ball effect out of just a regular circle. And one thing I'll do too is I'll drag it over there. Just doing that, kind of makes it seem like there's like a spotlight shining on or something. Again, quick and dirty, not very great, but if you're in a pinch or you need something done quick, it's something you can use. And the last thing I'm going to show you is this. Now we got a picture of a guy playing baseball, swinging at the bat, swinging at the ball, hitting it, and it looks great. And I want to create an effect where it looks like this is airing on an actual TV. So I got this picture, this image of a really old TV. And in order to create this effect, all I would have to do is cut out the white center screen here and put this in the background, which it already is, and it would look like this is on the screen. But the problem is that this old time, it would look really weird if it was just such a clean, even edge all the way around. It would look way too sharp, way too crisp. There would be no imperfections. It actually would look kind of weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go create an effect using the marquee tool. I'm going to get the rectangular shapes tool, and I'm going to set the feathering pretty high, like up to 50. Usually you probably wouldn't use this if you wanted to create natural images, but I'm using it to create this kind of a neat effect. Put it right about there. Yeah, make sure I've got the layer selected. And when I hit delete, it's going to get rid of the main screen area, but it's going to leave a little bit of a white glow around it, as you can see. Yeah, so that looks pretty good actually. It kind of has this old TV feel where, like, around the edges it's kind of light. It's kind of a crummy old model where it wasn't flat, it wasn't crisp, it wasn't great. So I created that, just using the marquee tool in just a few seconds. If I were to use other effects or try to freehand it, well, it's just like the last example. It probably would have taken a lot more time. It may turn out like looking a little bit better, but this is something that's really fast and dirty you can do to get an effect with relatively no time or effort. So that's all I got for the marquee tool. There's a few things you can use it for. Can save you some time. So if you like this video, go ahead and click subscribe. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching.